Winston Churchill's in his office, in his constituency office in Woodford there, he said to me, he said, in peacetime, he said, pub brawlers, he said, fighters, he said, and psychopaths, he said, they're a menace, he said, we don't know what to do with them, he said, but come a war, he says, in the country is only too pleased for these men. And that's right. Can you see that?
I was just thinking here. Let's see here. You were talking a little bit earlier about the IRD, the Information Research Department, and I want to just return a little bit to that and bring up the idea of if there were actually any connections with the Kim Philby and all of the others of the Cambridge Five, or the Cambridge, what was it called, the Apostles?
The Apostles, yeah. Actually, they're spoken about in KGB documents as the Magnificent Five, but in actual fact there was 25. And they were called the Apostles. They were mainly a homosexual group, and they were the intellectuals. If you look at people some of the lecturers there, and this always amazes me how some of these known communists were allowed to lecture to these people in the universities. And there was actually cells in Oxford as well. You don't often hear about it. You always hear about the Cambridge traitors, but
sure.
Oxford as well. It was the political climate of the time, and a lot of these guys, they had seen the Russians there had eliminated all their intellectuals under the Stalinist purges. There, thousands of them were just done away with. And a lot of these guys were fearful. They really believed that communism would sweep across the world. And they all wanted. So Anthony Blunt, he put it very succinctly. He said, we believed, he said, that when the Russians came, he said, we would be in positions of power.
Yeah.
He said, we had helped them. He said, we were the elite, he said, at the universities. He said, we all felt we had a role to play. Well, of course, we know now that the first people that the Stalinists would dispose of were the intellectuals, because they had the brain to think things through.
Exactly.
Stalin didn't want any rivals.
Jeez.
You know?
Yeah.
When Svetlana defected to the States, she gave a lot of information. Some of it was regarded as subjective, but some of it fitted in very, very well, particularly with regard to the Cambridge traitors. But there again, you have the situation there whereby what were our intelligence services doing when people like Kim Philby was known to be married to a communist agent? What are these people using for brains? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the one you're speaking of there is Ruth Werner, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about her, if you will. Do you have some background info on her?
Yeah, she was she serviced Oxford for quite a while. There was a lot of talk that one of the very senior guys there, I've forgotten his name.
Sure.
Hollis. There's a lot of questions still asked about whether Hollis was a spy or not. And they have gone over this and regurgitated it for years and years, trying to place Ruth Werner in the same place as where Hollis was. But my belief was that Hollis was not a Soviet agent. He was a bit of an incompetent. He was promoted well above his abilities. But it looks increasingly like, if you look at defector statements, and if you talk to some of these defectors, as if he was a bit of a fool, but he wasn't pro-Soviet. But it was Lord Rothschild. Lord Rothschild manipulated these people because he was a spy for Russia, and he was later a spy for Israel.
So there is the connection between, because again, that's interesting. We were talking earlier about kind of the philosophy of the New World Order, but here we have another philosophy, and actually on some level, again, the socialistic philosophy kind of dovetails with the New World Order on one level, and again, we can see that socialism is connected with the elites also, and many people have tracked this back, and they see that, the socialist agenda going in was, again, also financed, from the top guys down.
Absolutely. If you read people like Henry Makow, if you read Eustace Mullins, they have done a lot of research, and they can put a lot in here. They can add a lot to this.
Yeah, exactly.
But what is interesting was that all these people, they all say at some level it was all a game. It was just a game to pit one country against another as a business as a way of earning money. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, exactly. I mean, again, many times politics has been referred to as a game, and again, we have even if we look at the terminology itself, we have the right wing and the left wing, implying that there is a center body controlling everything, you know.
Yeah.
And we have these ideas of even, you know, the grand chessboard and not whatnot, you know, moving across, that this is just a game, and in the end, I think at some level, many people's playing this game kind of realize this after a while, but again, their philosophy is that you know, okay, I'm playing for one side here, and my kind of mission here is to play the game as good as I can, and my mission is obviously to win the game, and it's going to be a battle, you know, either if it's between capitalism or socialism or whatever it might be. But it seems to be that all these sides now are kind of merging more and more and more by the day. I don't know. Would you agree on that?
Well, I would agree, and I would go further. I can give you a classic instance of that. One of the biggest spies ever that we had in Britain was a guy called George Blake. Now, George Blake did tremendous damage, not just to Britain, but to America as well. Now, George Blake, the judge at his trial, he sentenced him to 42 years. He said one for each life, because he betrayed all the agents we had in the Soviet bloc. They went down one by one, and there were 42 of them. Mm-hmm. The judge said, I'm giving you 40. Now, what happened? If you believe the history books, right, George Blake, with the help of a couple of drunken peace protesters, broke out of prison, got out, and went back to the Soviet Union. Do you remember the story?
I do not. Please tell us.
That's the official line. Mm-hmm. And you immediately think, what incompetence. How come this bloke, who a very learned, very powerful man there, how come that happened? Right? Well, it wasn't the case at all. What really happened was that the British government colluded. They colluded with the Soviets to get him out of prison. They put him on a small, fast naval boat, ran him down the Thames, and they got him out of the country. But the point is, our government colluded with the Soviets against us, the British people, who pay the wages of the politicians who lie to us. Okay. So what we've got here, we've got a situation whereby our government trusts the Soviets with this man, George Blake, but they don't trust us. They don't tell us the truth of what's happened, but they negotiate behind our backs with the Soviets to get him out. Are you with me?
Sure, and I mean, what does that tell us, in a way?
Well, what it tells us is that, first of all, we are the enemy to the government. See, the government doesn't trust the people. You see, I would have expected it to have been in the papers, look, we've negotiated with the Soviet Union. There might be an English agent over there or whatever. We've negotiated and we're going to let him out of his prison early. But they didn't say that. But not only that, but we had a bloke in prison whose job was just to watch George Blake, to hear what he says and report back. But now he was sworn to secrecy. Okay? So our government, right, colluded with the Soviets, got him out of prison and sent him away. Why did they do that? Why would they have done that? And why would they have lied to us, the electorate? I find this very sinister. And I would say that if our government is not trustworthy, I would say then we shouldn't be electing them. I want people that we can say, right, I don't want people with their hands in the till. I don't want people that are taking money from NWO people behind our backs. I want people, if they are, our politicians are going to be working for us. Do you see what I mean?
Sure, but how can we know that before it's too late and we find ourselves in the same situation again?
Exactly. And we do. We find ourselves repeatedly in the same situation, whereby we're let down by these people. You know, we're tricked into wars or sort of stuff that isn't in the British interest at all.
Well, sorry, I just want to interject that's why I personally don't see leadership on that kind of level as the solution to this, because again, to me, this only shows that we continuously give our power away to someone who should represent us. I can understand the administration aspect to why a society wants to have a kind of a government or at least an administration kind of unit in there to regulate and whatnot. But I don't see us giving up our power as a solution. That's why I see we're kind of duped into this again and again, and we never learned the lesson that we shouldn't give up the power. I don't know.
Yeah. It's that word you used earlier, influence. They influence us through the media, through the TV, through our newspapers. We are conditioned, we are moulded what to think and feel.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like some of these guys that are football addicts we were talking about earlier. They have what they call footballism now, which is guys that are so obsessed with football that they have to go to group therapy, you know?
Sure.
You'll see guys crying after matches, you know, and you sort of think this is supposed to be a sport, you know? But our TV, they put the football on in the news, before the news, and they whip it up as if it's so important. It's not a sport anymore, you know? It's
more of a kind of a religious and spiritual experience, I think, for some, and even it reflects kind of the need for some kind of how should I put it? Some kind of tribalism, almost something that you can identify with and be a part of, because the government and the country is not to that extent the same anymore.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Yeah, I like that.
So I mean, I can see the reason for why they want to have football. I think that what we see today is a perfect reflection of how they, meaning the rulers, so to speak, how they wanna have it, and they see that if people can keep occupied with football on that level, that's perfect, because then they can go about their business and people can still feel that they're part of something, but it's not political or economical or to any other kind of extent connected with reality. It's more like a fantasy on the side,
But what do you make of the situation, Henrik, whereby we've had three of sport's biggest names over the past fortnight have come on the TV and apologised for using drugs, One of the East German athletes said a while ago, she said, it's a question of our drugged athletes against your drugged athletes and about not being caught.
Really? I haven't heard about this before. Did this just happen over in the UK?
Yeah, there's been a succession of top athletes that have been caught taking performance-enhancing drugs.
Right. Well, I mean, and there's another thing that always happen again and again and again, and people, either if it's what was his name, Carl Lewis, or the recent one, the female American athlete who was again admitting to that she was taking, steroids or some kind of, drug. I don't know what it was, but again, I'm not surprised at all. It keeps popping up all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, let's see here. I want to return and talk a little bit about. Let's see here. The one thing we could talk about again is Churchill, and we can tie this in with. Because you mentioned in our first segment about the British Isles and the people that were there before the Romans came over, so to speak, and that the people there were not savages. We have been doing on this program a lot about the Druids or the Celts with Michael Cesarion and others as well, and I thought we could talk a little bit about the Druids, and at least if we tie in the aspect of Winston Churchill, because I guess he was a member of the Order of Druids, was he not?
He was, yeah. But remember that when in the Boer War, Churchill always claimed that he had special psychic abilities. And he made the claim that in the Boer War he escaped. And he said the one house there that he knocked on the door was the one house that gave him succor and comfort. And he said psychically he knew which house. Well, I don't know whether I believe that, but it tells you of Churchill's interest in the occult from day one.
Mm-hmm.
See?